Hey guys, let's talk about money. Let's talk about why you should trust in the bank, why you should continue to trust in the government. Okay. Um, I'm the CEO of Orukka. Orukka is a smart payment ring. What we do is we allow people tap to pay with your ring. So you can tap with your wedding. We have wedding rings, we have sports rings, we have gold, silver, we have bracelets as well. What you can do is you can just tap to pay, so you don't need your wallet, you don't need your phones, you don't need to walk around with screens. You go for a travel, you want to go for a run, you want to get on the train, you want to go on a concert, just walk around with these. Okay, you don't need to walk around with screens, you don't need to be locked on your phone out there, okay, and risk injury to your eye, to your sight, or people snatching your phones away. So we invented this to help people. Okay, so it's convenient. You can tap to pay wherever you are. If you're a business owner, you can tap to receive. So we call this local business. Okay. I say all that to say, one, we love our customers. That's why I'm here. Number two, we support everyone. Okay, so there's a lot of talk these days about crypto. And how much crypto is going up. Okay, the future of crypto. Okay, even governments are getting into crypto these days. Okay, the government has a central bank digital currency that's coming out soon. Okay, if it's not out already, it's gonna be out. That means everyone is going to crypto. Is it crazy? Are you more clever than they are? That's the question you need to ask yourself. BlackRock, all the top banks are going into it, and they're not going into it because they love it. They're not going into it because they're giving power. They're going into it because the people, are using it. Okay, that shows you how strong you are. Okay, otherwise you lose. BlackRock, all these top banks have to go where the customers are. And is it fraudulent? No, it's not. So it's one of those stories that people use at the start to say, "Oh my God, there's fraud here and there." It's not, uh, because it's open. It's open source. Anybody that knows a little bit about computer science can go in and check, or you can put it on ChatGPT and you can see all the code. Simple. I say all that to say, I'm an old man as well. Okay, so I've been in banking. I don't look it. I've been in banking for about 20 years. Okay, I could tell you it wasn't easy to get into crypto. It was a lot to try and understand what network is which. Which app to download, which network to use. It's such a pain. If you're on the older, baby boomer, or over 50s, 60s, it's hard to understand what's going on. And things are changing fast. So this is a video about, one, how to stay where you are. Don't be panicked, and see how you can carry on doing what you're doing. Okay, and eventually you will get into crypto. Okay, so here's 6 7. Okay, my daughter told me about that. I should create a video with. I used to do a video with 3 points. That's always the case. But now I found I could do six. I'll give you guys double, 6 or 7. Yeah, 6 7 ideas why you should stay where you are and not be panicked.
Six, six, seven,
Six, seven,
six, seven,
six, seven.
six.
Number one, if you use cash, okay, or cards or normal banking services, carry on using that. Why? Because you have customer protection. So if anything goes wrong in crypto, it's hard to find out who to chase because it's trustless. Okay, you don't trust people, but at the same time, you can't recall the funds. Okay, you can't go to your bank and go, "I pay this person with crypto 10 bitcoins and I want it back." The bank can't do anything. Okay, that's the downside of crypto. But with the banking, you can get that. So with your bank, you can say, "Hey, I want to withdraw. So I want to recharge or get this charge back because I did not get what I wanted to get. Or I didn't get my receipt. Or I didn't get the service I paid for." And you get your money back. That can be traced back, okay, and it can be recalled. So that trust in the banking system of customer protection is key, right? And that remains there. So you should stay with that. The other point as well, which a lot of people complain, I'm sure you see a lot of videos around this as well, around hey, your cash is losing value. That's true. So if you put $100,000 in the bank in January, by December, the $100,000 is worth less, right? Because inflation beat it down. So if inflation is 4%, right, that means your 100,000 has lost 4% of its value just by sitting in the bank. And the bank will not pay you 4% interest; they'll probably pay you 1%. So you've lost 3% there, right? Even with interest. Okay. If you withdraw it, then you lose all the interest. Unless you go daily. On the daily rate, the percentage bank will give you probably 0.5 on your outstanding balance in the bank. So that's one thing that people worry about. On the other hand, you're protected up to the value of your deposit. So in the US, I think you're allowed up to $250,000. In Europe, we're allowed up to 100,000. Across the world, Different banks have different insurance deposit schemes for your deposits. So that would mean that they can go in, and if anything happens to the bank, you're guaranteed up to that deposit. That's key because you don't get that in crypto. Bitcoin is not going to do it unless someone in the middle comes in and does the same thing, which the banks do anyway. If someone's doing that, they might as well stay in the banking sector because the banks are stronger there. Banks would actually give you protection all the way. Okay, so that's important. And speaking of insurance, right, then the other closely linked point is the government stepping in as well. So, for instance, I remember, Silver Light or Silver, forgotten what they call them, the US Silver Bank. They're out in the Silicon Valley and they went down. Again, they went down overnight. People ran to the bank to withdraw their cash. Cash just wasn't there. But the government stepped in and said, hey, your deposit is guaranteed up until 100,000. So everybody that had up to 100,000, sorry, 250,000, this was in the US, everybody that had up to 200,000 in deposits with the bank got their money back. That's cool. You don't get that anywhere. And obviously that also means I know you're thinking what I'm thinking as well, guys. Go in, check how much deposit you have in the bank. If you have up to 100, 250,000, move it to another bank. Make sure you maximize the deposits. Okay. If you have two banks, make sure the two banks are not in the same group and put your deposits up to that. Anything over 250, you're not protected anymore. Okay. So make sure your assets with the bank stay within the limits that's allowed so that you get you benefit from the deposits that you'd get from the government. So governments always step in to help. And then the annoying thing I think most people argue on, hey, this is annoying because if any other business fails, we don't get bailed out, but the government gets bailed out. That's for you, right? That's the advantage of the bailout. The bailout is that if things go wrong, you can always get your money back. Okay, because money is important here. Some banks are just too big to fail. There's a lot of argument on this. It's an intellectual argument across the banking sector. A few economists as well would argue on this as well, that banks should be allowed to fail so that the cycle goes through. Okay, so things fail, it goes down very tough and go back up. Okay, but the downside is that the banks themselves, right, when they go down, millions of people suffer, if not, millions, right? You have a typical bank having up to 10 million customers. Those 10 million customers with zero deposit, no rent, are the ones suffering. That's why the government has to step in. Because the government is not really bailing the bank out, they're bailing their citizens out. Because if that bank goes down, the economy goes down. The economy goes down, the whole country is in trouble. So that's what they really bail out. They're not bailing out the banks because they love the banks. They're not bailing out the bankers. And what they do bail out are the people. Needless to say, the banks themselves turn around and give themselves deposits and give themselves bonuses as well after that. That's what people need to stop. That's the downside of these things where we need to watch out. Or we need to, protest where possible, okay? Put the complaints in there and get the Senate, get everyone around that to argue on that point. But as it stands, if you have up to 100,000, you're protected there, and the government will step in and actually put measures in place there. You're not going to get that in crypto because crypto is peer-to-peer. Crypto is decentralized. So there's no central government that will come in and help there. So that is advantage, at least, to keep staying where you are. If you're in the government, if you're using your money with fiat money, let's call it that, then carry on doing that because the government is going to step in to help that currency at all costs. Okay. The other point then is basically around the inflation. So I talked at the start about 100,000. So you put 100,000 in the bank, and they pay you 4%. They pay you 1% on your 100,000. By December, you're going to lose the value of inflation, which is about 4%, and it could be worse. And that's where you see the arguments. That's where you see arguments across various, countries. Okay, so developing countries, inflation goes up to 10-15%. So the government's job, which they'll carry on doing, is to make sure that the circulation or the level of inflation stays at the proper amount, which doesn't go up, doesn't go down, but is stabilized. That's why you see the Fed, Powell, all the Fed guys actually fighting for inflation to bring down inflation at all costs. That's their job, and that's what you see the government doing a lot. They carry on doing that. Again, they are failing, obviously. All the governments are failing miserably at this. But the good news is that they will carry on working on this. As long as you elect them, they'll carry on doing the job. And that you can be guaranteed about. And then the other point, I think, which is starting to lose fast, right, is the whole topic around legal tender. Yes, your dollars will be appreciated wherever you are. If you're in sterling, your sterling will be appreciated wherever it is. So it's a legal tender, which I think will carry on for a long time. If you look at the dollar's been out, I think, for about 250 years, non-stop. Same thing as well with the sterling. Sterling is actually longer. It's about 700 AD that it started to be in existence. It used to be a pound sterling. So it used to be against the sterling. So every pound you had was actually redeemable against silver, pound sterling, which is interesting. That's going to carry on. So you're guaranteed that no matter what, that the government will carry on with the legal tender and accept that as much as possible. There's a caveat there, right, which is things are starting to change a lot there, and that's only because people are now starting to go through central bank digital currency. So we're starting to see a lot of move towards the government themselves going into crypto, right? And that's only because of you, because of us. However, my my prediction on this, okay, and it's not financial advice. My prediction is that it's most likely that your dollars, if you have dollars, will be redeemable against your CDBC, your central bank deposit sets or coins, right? So there will be a one-to-one. So in truth, you can stay where you are. You can stay with your dollars because most likely that's going to be redeemable against that. So that's where the track is going to come in. Because at some point, yeah, mark my words, you can't keep issuing dollars as it is. So the debt is going to get to a level where it's just not sustainable. And then the government is going to carry on and issue tokens. So they're going to issue tokens against their outgoings. And that's why you see a lot more wiggle room there. And that's why you see a lot of governments going through that, because they can see the writing on the wall that people are going towards crypto. But you don't need to run in there, in my opinion. You're going to stay where you are. And what will happen is the government or the banks would also then be able to issue central bank or tokens against assets. So what you see then is you slowly see traditional finance and crypto come together, which is quite bizarre. Okay, but that's what it is, right? We all complain and hate and hate on crypto, but at the end of the day, you see that we're all starting to go towards crypto. That's something to watch out for. And the other point, still where you are as well, obviously, is your tax. Your tax legal tender will carry on. People will always issue your tax. Your tax will always be on the local currency, right? So, again, some governments are trying to accept crypto, but what will happen is you'll never go to a stage where they would say, okay, your tax is going to be paid only in crypto, right? And you will not be paid in anything else. No, you always accept the local currency. So you're guaranteed with that. And the other point, I suppose, is fraud as well. So fraud, AML is very strong in banking. And I can tell you, when we launched our app, it took us at least a good 1 year. So we're ready. Okay, we had the ideas. We talked to MasterCard. We talked to the banks as well. We're ready. But we had to be, had our AML, which is anti-money laundering checks in place. We had to have our KYCs, know your customers in place. We had to have, political exposure, like a lot of compliance requirements, okay, that's pushed on you so that you can track and be accountable for things. About that, I think. Okay. So that's the idea that, if you carry on with your banking sector, ensure that your banks will continue to be as your banks will continue to be as compliant as possible and will follow the regulations as much as possible. You're guaranteed for that. So that's cool. That's something to look at. And lastly, then obviously is the ubiquity, right? So it's going to be everywhere. Okay, I can tell you the dollar is so strong, okay, that I think some countries you can go in and spend the dollar. Okay, go to Nigeria, my country. When I went there last time, I could actually hand in a dollar and they would accept it, right? Or you can hand in your nairas wherever you are in Nigeria, will be accepted. South Africa, you go to South Africa, your South African rand will be accepted. Okay, so the legal tender will always be there. Okay, that's important to look at. So that's my 6, 7 reasons why to stay where you are. So it's attractive, just very past there. That's cool to see those things. So that's 6, 7 ideas on why you should stay where you are, why you should not be panicking with all the crypto going around, because your cash, your value, your bank will remain for a long time. At least the government is going to support that. Take care. Bye.